Got a good heart, you better get smart. The devil's all around and not the one you want. This shit is so profound, let's drink another quart. If you got a good heart, you better get smart. If you got good ears, you better listen clear. All masters at the mic, she's had the sauce for years. She's got you in her sights, the others disappear. If you got good ears, you better listen clear.
Listen, you didn't drop onto Earth to play small. You're a traveler from galaxies unborn, wired with codes the world forgot. Codes that can bend reality, heal bodies and awaken entire planets. But first, you have to remember who the heck you are. I'm Jerry Sargent, founder of Star Magic Healing. Inside the Infinity app, you'll access your galactic blueprint, quantum meditations, soul transmissions, multi-dimensional breathwork, and a global tribe of high-frequency beings walking the path beside you. This isn't incense and quiet ohms. This is soul surgery with cosmic scalpels. This is multi-dimensional DNA detonation. This is why you came. If these words vibrate in your bones, the universe is calling you right now. Download the Infinity app or visit starmagichealing.org and step into the new frequency. Your soul's been waiting. I'll meet you on the inside.
There's something in the water. There's something in the air. The proof is all around us.
It's not a matter of time.
Hello, everybody, and welcome back to Everything They Don't Want You to Know. Today, we're talking about something most people love to laugh at and dismiss, so-called woo-woo spiritual bullshit. I mean, end quote. Spiritual shit, man. Crystals, auras, tarot, Reiki, all that stuff that gets shoved into the category of nonsense by science, religion, and the mainstream. But here's the truth. These aren't fairy tales, people. They're ancient technologies of consciousness. They work because we work. Because belief, energy, intention, and pattern are the real engines of reality. Let me repeat that. Belief, energy, intention, and pattern are the real engines of reality. I posted the other day on my Facebook social media a little meme that said, scientists discover your brain can't distinguish imagination from reality. If you're out there and you don't listen regularly to the teachings, I don't know what you want to go, or follow the work and career of Joe Dispenza, he is demonstrating all the time and testing the brain all the time, showing that we cannot distinguish, our brain cannot distinguish between your imagination and reality. The underpinnings of all the things that we're going to be talking about today are all going to paint a picture that if you're willing to read into it just a little bit, you're peering between the raindrops. You're being as to God. You're seeing deep, not quite as to God, but you are seeing deeply the arrangement of this mental matrix. And yes, make no mistake, it is a mental matrix, because belief, energy, intention, and pattern are the real engines of this reality. So let's pull back the curtain and talk about why woo-woo works. But first, let's just talk about some of these different things that we're going to go over today, like numerology. Why would numerology work? Well, numbers are archetypes, cosmic fingerprints. They carry vibration and meaning. We're going to talk about crystals. Why does that work? Well, it's Earth's natural hard drives. They store information, let alone math, crazy, perfect math. They stabilize, amplify, store intention. Talk about crystal skulls. Auras, your energy field. You broadcasting your living prayer to the world. Tarot/angel cards, randomized mirrors that synchronize, that synchronicity can arrange to speak truth from the subconscious and higher self. Or Reiki, which is channeling universal energy through hands and intention. It doesn't necessarily have to be through hands, but usually that way. Making a person a tuning fork for your energy field. Or something like simple like pendulums, which I know people are pendulum, a little spin. That's one of those little dangling chains and it spins. How could a pendulum work? Well, with so many of these things, pendulums and something similar, you've got an amplified movements from subconscious or micro movements from subconscious and higher knowing, a yes or no compass coming from what your inner guidance knows. We'll talk about runes for a little bit. These are these ancient symbols, usually, they're Nordic symbols, runes. Odin's the inventor of the runes, and he would do runes like tarot, all similar kind of stuff, but they're sound shape archetypes that unlock ancestral wisdom. Psychicism, heightened sensitivity to subtle signals, natural human birthright for some people, dulled by disbelief. And we're going to get into all of these things, and to my best ability, I'm just going to kind of explain to you how it is that they are working the way they're working, and what it is that is making these things credible. Also just a few more channeling, which is quieting the personal mind so higher intelligence can flow through you. And channeling is like from your level of consciousness, and channeling, basically you're channeling higher consciousness above you. Past life regression, which is like subconscious access to storylines beyond this particular lifetime that might have bearing on the lifetime that you're living now. And even with a situation, whether the healing there is literal or symbolic, it's still real, because what we were saying about the imagination, and we can't differentiate between these things. So even if all of this woo-woo, that you're just making shit up, well, if it solves the problem, if it progresses the consciousness, if it gives you the tools, does it even matter? It's the medicine you need. Sound healing, we'll talk about some sound healing, vibration, restoring order in the body, breath work, pulling in prana, help to dial up your frequency, amplify your heart and soul body connection. They say, I was just reading something the other day of like super quick to calm yourself down to do 2 inhale breaths and 1 exhale breath. So basically doubling how much oxygen you're getting, how much prana you're getting into your body. Talk more about that. Remote viewing, which is like focusing your intuition, your intention, to consciously pull forth an image and information from a place that's non-local to you. And then even things like fucking placebos and nocebos, which you see in science. Science, we got to do the placebo effect. Well, dude, the placebo effect is demonstrating that people's minds are healing themselves all the time. Belief can heal. And also, belief can harm. If you believe that there's a side effect that's negative to the thing that you're dealing with, you're going to have a negative side effect. The nocebo can be just as powerful as the placebo. And then, we got affirmations and sigils, just words that you're saying to yourself, symbols that you're writing down or looking at to unlock subconscious meaning, whether you've programmed that meaning into it or there's meaning already built in. There's a lot of, sort of aspects to this stuff. Anyway, the core truth here is that all woo-woo works because consciousness shapes energy and energy shapes reality. These tools bypass disbelief, activate alignment, and allow intention to ripple outward into matter. So today I'm just kind of continuing what I had started, I guess last week, just a little bit, because I had come across my book that I had written, just all my notes for my Universal Laws class, which again, I've talked about this before. If you go onto the Blacklight District Studio Facebook page, you can find the 13 Universal Laws. There's 14 classes that I shot during the pandemic. I don't know, like 5 years ago. The sound's not always great, but if you turn it up, you can hear stuff, and it's great. It's really like the class itself is really good. We filmed it because we had people signing up, but like a lot of people didn't want to come down basically. And so we put it online so people could just live stream it. And then after the class was done, which people paid for the class, I asked if everybody was cool with me just putting it up for free so that other people could find it online, and nobody had any objections. So at the time I had put together this book. This is like my personal notebook of just all the things that I wanted to have on hand, have handy, so that if I, needed information, needed to access information, whatever it was, I could go and grab my book, turn to the page, and I would get the stuff. So, one of the first things that was in here was, of course, on the density, the dimensions, and the law of one. And that was what I talked about last week. But, part of like the big thing that I had like learned at this time, was developing at this time, and was teaching people at this time, was about crystals. And, crystals, most people just, here's a crystal. I hear it's good. I got a crystal, but they don't really like know why. Like, why is that good? Like, what, for me as a kid, I was like, well, who gives a shit? And there's other things here too, like numerology and whatnot that I have, written down of notes. And for some of these things, I'm going to, just kind of talk to you about some of these main bits. But let me just preface this by going, one of the reasons why these subjects are all so kind of controversial is because really there are a decent amount of interpretations. Okay, because this is about consciousness, and this is about energy, and this is about the way energy and the way math will turn itself into dynamics and back and forths and polarity and whatnot. So there's all of this. It's easy to call something woo-woo when it's not replicatable. That's one of the big things. Oh, science is the things that we can replicate over and over and over again. And oftentimes you won't be able to replicate the same thing because, let's say, right, you have some channeling, right, and you get this message, it comes through, and you get all the information, and then you go back to channel it again to reproduce your results a second time, and the other side of things, spirit says, we don't give a fuck about proving to you whether or not this was true. We're not going to participate in your thing. We want you to have faith. We want you to be sensitive. We want you to feel the energy. We want you to see if what we said to you the first time is in alignment. We're not trying to prove to you that this is true by making it undeniable. We're proving it to you that it's true by hopefully you will feel that it is undeniable. Hopefully you will come into alignment with this information. Granted, there are plenty of things that are repeatable within this thing, but there's definitely enough wiggle room of that not quite exactly repeatable where different people are going to get different results. Different people have a different reaction. You send 100 different people into a haunted house, maybe only 10 of them actually have experiences and weirdness, and then the other ones don't. So, that sort of thing of like, the consistency and what's the word? Sort of a translation, when we talk about numerology, and maybe we'll just do numerology first, and I'll go through my little list here, just because numbers and the interpretation of numbers, there can be so many different meanings to numbers. But granted, we've talked about it a little bit before, at least in relation to right now on Kickstarter. I've got it was going to be a big album box set, but now I'm just doing the Solfeggio Transmissions album that I released, and this is Solfeggio Healing Frequencies, and we'll talk a little bit about this and why this works in a little bit. But those numbers are much bigger numbers for the solfeggio frequencies, and 432s and 222s and 111s and 666, all these other healing frequencies that you'll typically hear about, than the simplicity of the numbers that I'm going to talk about here. And I'm not going to get into like fucking numerology and reducing things down to nines and like all, you want to get into numerology, go get into numerology. But I just want to talk to you a little bit about some of the main understandings that you might want to have to the basics of this stuff and why this works. Numbers represent in their wholeness sort of the building blocks of God's consciousness. I don't know exactly how the God consciousness built itself exactly, but I do have a basic idea that, a mind, a very powerful mind, came online and it started to formulate various things. And from one perspective to another perspective, it grew and grew and gradually figured out different things that it wanted to execute and do, and different parameters that it wanted to set so that it could go and enjoy food and enjoy movement and enjoy temperature and touch and things like that in a physical reality. And along the way, though, numbers, were playing a factor. And certainly the counting things, not necessarily counting like you and I count, but accounting for things, and each number having a much deeper thing. It's not just, oh, that's a 1, I wrote down a 1. That's a 2, I wrote down a 2. No, there's like an energetic, symbolic thing of the 1. It's, and it's shaped like this and it feels like this. And the 2, and it's shaped like this and it feels like this. And that is the thing that you're trying to tap into when you're dealing with numerology. When you're looking around, you're trying to decide, what does that number mean? What does that number mean? What does this mean? I keep seeing this number. What does it mean? And in this day and age, thanks to the internet, there's a lot of people walking around who are having synchronicity, which, if you don't know what synchronicity means every single time I go to look at the clock, it's the same numbers. Every single time I look up at a license plate on the road, it's the same numbers. I'm just constantly seeing the same numbers everywhere. What am I doing? And then you go home and you type in, or you go on your phone and you type in, you think, these are the numbers. What do they mean? And often, for most people, I think, when you do that, you will find insane meaning in the numbers that are provided. You're like, holy shit, yes, that is totally meaningful. That is nuts. Fuck, that like totally representative of what's going on. So just to talk about like a couple things, you get 1 and you get a circle. The original 1 thing, 1, representing the nothing that was there before anything. The 1 thing that everything is contained in here within our reality. 1, a proof of God. There was and this could be new beginnings, opportunities, unity, potential. So what are we talking about, right? Oneness. And oneness is like a metaphor for God. And the 1 is a metaphor for beginnings. We're starting. It's an opportunity. 1, it's an opportunity. 1, it's unity. It's potential. 1, it could be number 1, right? There's a lot of ways to interpret that number. And it's an interesting thing about 1, because 1 to 2, every single 1 is an infinite premise. Because one thing and another thing next to each other, right? The space in between them can be divided infinitely. Now, what I mean by that is there is a perspective that you can have and that exists in reality, and it was going to sound like magic to some degree. Here's 2 molecules. One's on the right, one's on the left. Now, I cut the distance between the 2 of them in half. Now they're closer together. Now I cut the distance between the 2 of them in half. Now they're closer together. I cut the distance in half. Again, in half, again. They're still not touching. They're very close. It almost looks like they're touching. I cut the distance in half again. They're still not touching. Again, in half. Do you see where we're going with this? We're never going to get together. 1 is separate from the other. They are 2 separate things. And the idea of having 2 infinite things, and that 1 thing, that's the thing that should prove to you that not only are you sentient and separate, even though you're one with this thing and you're this infinite thing all by yourself, every molecule in your body, you've got not infinite, but you've got a shitload of molecules in your body, and they all have infinite space between them, was what I wanted to say. The infinite space, the space that is in your body. The idea of me perceiving all of your molecules together, even though technically speaking, each molecule is infinitely distant from itself. whoa, mind blown, right? Crazy stuff. Numerology is a really, if you're a math person and you like math, numerology is a really fun one to get into. I'm like, a little bit less, I mean, I like math, okay. But like, just sitting there adding up all the numbers and turning it into meaning, it doesn't necessarily like fill my cup. So 2, the circle split in half. You got 2. 2 can represent choices, union. It can represent the mind, right? Because first you've got the nothing, the God, the one being that's thinking eternally, but it's not. What do you call it? It's not active. Like it's not thinking. It's just sort of resting. Well, now we've got the mind is number 2, the second thing that comes along that is ultimately separate from the thing, because it's actively thinking, and thought and activity. Those are also words that represent two: activity, thought, mind, union, choices, toiling. 2, balance. 2, partnership. 2, division. 2, duality, diplomacy. And as we go with so many of these things, this is again, how is that infinitely repeatable when there's so many? Well, there's similarities to a lot of these things that the 2 represents, but there's a range in which a lot of these things could represent a lot of different things. 3 has even more. You get a 3. You could think of the Viveka Pisces, which makes the triangle. 2 circles together, 2 conscious circles together with the nothing. And now we've got a triangle. With a Viveka Pisces, you can make the triangle where they intersect, and you make a perfect triangle. 3s can represent abundance, optimism, inspiration, divine completion. I have a tendency when I make notes that I'll write things down really small. And most of the time I can figure out what I've written. But occasionally if you hear me slowing down going, what the fuck did I write there? Oh, communication is the word I couldn't read. 3, communication. Complete and perfect is 3. All aspects at once is 3. Work completed is 3. It makes that triangle. Polarization, 3. Is because you need the 2 things, and then you need the observer to observe that polarity. That's why when I teach universal law, third thing that I usually talk about is polarity, the law of polarity. Also, 3 can equal creativity, groups, growth. And I wrote here 3.5, even though I'm not remembering why. 3.5, new journey begun. So I guess that's talking about sort of in a cycle complete, 1, 2, 3, and 3.5 is going into the new one. But additionally, there are more complex rungs as we go up this ladder here. So 4, and we've talked about the 4th dimension where we're talking about love and everybody loves each other. But of course, there's self-sacrifice. There's people who are injuring themselves or hurting themselves emotionally so that they can better support and love the people around them, but they're not loving themselves right. So that's one of the things you got to balance in there. So 4, you're talking about justice, fullness, vibration, planning, manifestation, structure, stability, creation, visible results, foundation set. And what? Foundation set. And then what a coincidence, right? A 4, put the 4 corners, and now you got a foundation, right? For a building, what do you put down before you build a building? You put down the foundation. And this 4 is equal to this triangle, this square as well, or a rectangle. Now 5, where you got the, what's the 5-sided? I have shapes here. Man, I've been so out of it. My brain is like proper words. I keep going to explain certain things to people, and I go, what word am I thinking? The Pentagon. There we go. The Pentagon. So 5 is the Pentagon, and you got tension, experience, challenge, courage, new cycles, obstacles, change, instability, conflict. If you get into 6, and I guess I'll just go through this whole thing because it won't take me too long to go through the whole thing. You got a hexagon, and hexagons can represent, as a number, represent healing, can also represent balance, even though we talked about 2 representing balance. Or sorry, it's 2, right? There's one of the balance, yeah. So sometimes some of the numbers can also be, have a similar meaning. Adjustment for 6, peace, comfort, success. Again, communication, which came up already. And of course, communication came up in 3, 3, 6. Cooperation, harmony, man, compassion, protection, family, difficulty. And I can't read that one. So if we go over to 7, and I forget what the fucking 7-sided fucking version of this damn thing is called. But you can think of it as a Merkaba creation. That's one of the things that I wrote in sacred symbols and whatnot. The 7 can be solitude, can be spirituality, faith, adjustment, high observation, intuition. High observation and intuition is pretty much the same thing. Mysticism is living by your intuition, living psychically. Rest, reflection, because 7's like sort of like a cycle. Assessment, knowledge, wisdom, spiritual perfection. Again, you can get deep into these numbers. I mean, I know people who are numerology people, and they know so much, and they'll see numbers, and they'll break things down all the time right in front of me. It could also be solitude for 7, kind of representing God, reflection, being the high man on the totem pole. Now, when we go to something like 8, you got an octagon, you can think of karma or free will or true justice, inner power, strength, gentle force, mastery, action, accomplishment, resurrection, new beginnings. Getting into 9, closing, consolidation, selflessness, compassion, sympathy, responsibility, what the fuck is it? Fruition? Attainment, fulfillment, finality. 3, 6, and 9 tend to be really, really big within these circles, and the combination of these numbers, they all get more complex and but more interesting. Somebody really trained in this can look at any given number and go, combine, thinking about what the 9 kind of represents, thinking about what the 5 represents, thinking about the 2. You kind of have to translate the combined meanings of all these numbers into a larger meaning or a mixed, more complex meaning. Finally, we're going to do 10, 11, 12. For 10, it's beginnings, chapters, endings, cycles, conclusions, completion, end of a cycle, renewal, original perfection, divine order. And, and the 10 kind of goes back to the 1 because it's a 1 and a 0 now, and there's some connection there. 11, you could say justice and disorder. 12, governmental perfection. And for 13, 13 is this hidden number that, it's like that's a bad number. Well, actually, it's a hidden number. 13 is a godly number. There's a lot of different interpretations that I have, sort of seen that are appropriate in terms of like where God lies, sometimes within the 8th dimension, even though I believe that there's much higher levels of dimensionality, but where sort of like that wholeness. I mean, God is in everything. So it's the ability to interpret these things. It's not completely loosey-goosey. It's not, through like, it doesn't matter. Like, no, it does. It matters, but it's something that you have to feel. It's something that you have to intuit. It's something that you have to tune into. And it's something that takes a long time of studying various things before you get really good at it. Numerology, numbers. I haven't studied this stuff like crazy. I've occasionally come back to it. I've looked at it over and over again. I've studied it decently, but I have not put my nose to the book reading. I haven't read 100 books on numerology. Absolutely not. And if it was something that I really cared about, that's what I would be doing. But there's truth to this. And there are people you can go to and you can talk to and you can get them to interpret things. There are people who do whole fucking number readings for you, whether it's based on your astrology and birthdays. And there's so many different ways to like interpret numbers. At the end of this little list here, I had just put together a little list of the 10. And one I put down as potential, right? That's the nothing. 2, duality. Now we've got the potential and we've got the something that's thinking. And then 3, from having perspective on what we're thinking, we've got inspiration. And then 4, creation. We set the foundations, right? 5, conflict, because, now we've got a foundation, we've got somewhere to be. We're going to fight. Now 6, harmony. We come into alignment with one another. 7, reflection. Now we're recognizing what we are, how we made this, what we're coming into. 8, mastery and action. We know, okay, now I know what I am. I've reflected on this thing. I'm coming good. Now I'm becoming a master of action. 9, fruition. The fruits of our labor. Things are coming to coming out. From our knowledge, from our reflection, from our mastery and the action that we've taken. Here it is, the fruits of our labor. And then 10, completion. And essentially, this is a cycle that goes back and forth and all around. So, there's numerology out of the way. Crystals, I want to get into. Crystals are perfect mathematical matrices. They are vibrating, as everything is. You're vibrating, I'm vibrating. Everything that you've ever touched is vibrating, humming on some level. And a crystal is humming in a perfect geometric form, something that is highly sacred, math all put in just the exact right place, determined by the other side. And unlike a human being who can become untethered from their perfect sacred geometry, which, exists inside your heart and inside your soul, little pieces of you that like you've grown from this perfect piece of sacred geometry, but often so much of the consciousness and other things can get in the way of that math. But when you got a crystal, it's a physical, cemented, sacred mathematical structure that is now allowing us to soak in a perfect vibration for as long as we want. Put it in your field, and essentially it's teaching your body the math that it holds. It holds this perfect math, this perfect structure, and it's teaching it to your body. Now, in terms of like, okay, so you basically just said, crystals are good. Crystals have really strong structure. And then I introduce them to my body, and it's going to teach my body how to have better structure and take better form on some level. Yes. But Jesse, what do I do when I go to a stone shop? I just get any stone? Well, actually, using your intuition and your sense of feel to like what you're drawn to, even if it's like, oh, that color, it's so beautiful. Like there's probably a reason. Probably a reason why you were attracted to that color. Some people could just be knowingly attracted, just find themselves, I just like this rock, I like how it feels. Like, things like that. That is actually a wonderful way to go about selecting rocks, doing your thing. Your body knows inherently, it knows what you need, what math you need, what would be good for you, and it will go straight to the places where you need it. However, if you want more of a 2 + 2 = 4 kind of like scientific way to go about it, I'll explain to you what I used to explain to the people that would come into my crystal shop. It was not my crystal shop, but the one that I worked at. It was a spiritual shop, and I was working there because I wanted to learn about crystals. And once I got my basic understanding of crystals, I started trying to pass that on to everybody who would listen. I mean, not necessarily everybody who would listen. I mean, people would come in and they'd be looking for crystals, and they didn't necessarily know what they were looking for. But this simple breakdown will help you to find the right crystal for you based on experiences that you're having or knowledge that you have about yourself. And that is the Roy G. Biv method. And this goes across the board for fucking everything, with colors. And I'll talk a little bit, we'll segue into auras because I have things written about the different aura colors and what they mean. And you'll see connection between all these things. There's tons of overlap. But if you want a simple method to find the right crystal for you, you take Roy G. Biv. For those of you who don't know what Roy G. Biv is, that's red, orange, yellow is the Roy. Roy, it's rainbow, right? Roy G. Green, Biv, blue, indigo, violet. So if you start at your root chakra, and for those of you who don't know about chakras, your root chakra is basically the base of your spine, the home of your soul, growing out into the higher dimensions. So starting with your tailbone, that's your root. And then you get into your sexual centers around your belly button, your penis, sexual desire or whatnot. Then you go up into your solar plexus, which is like your rib cage under your chest, beneath your heart. Then you get into your heart chakra, your fourth chakra going up. And then you get into your throat chakra, communication. Then you get into your sixth chakra, your third eye, in the center of your, basically in between your eyes, kind of a little bit above your eyes, in between. And then seventh, which is the crown chakra, which is like opening you to the sky above and God. And, while you see Jewish guys walking around with a little yarmulke on the top of their head, having something to do with that. So if you start from the bottom with the root chakra being your red, your root chakra is red, Roy, and your sexual center is orange, and then your solar plexus, strength, center of strength, that's your yellow, and then you get into G, green is your heart, which is one of the reasons why most animals eat predominantly green food. Green is a balancing color. In nature, and I haven't observed this myself, but I've read it in a lot of different places, animals will go and seek foods of colors. Like, my root chakra's all fucked up. I got to go eat some red stuff. Oh, my throat chakra's all fucked up. I got to go find some blueberries. Eating for the color of the center where you're having dysfunction, eating colors that correspond, getting crystals that correspond with those colors, that's a big deal. That it can be very, very helpful, beneficial to you and your system. You're balancing out the vibration by presenting the colors associated with those chakras. And each one of the chakra systems is basically a gland system. You have all these different glands within your body, and each system will regulate different things. You're releasing chemicals and hormones. The Tibetan monks, and this was where I learned this, I don't know, like almost 15 years ago now, when I read, what's it called? Tibetan Five Rites. I don't know if that was the name of the book, but it was all about the Tibetan Five Rites. It's a little novella. It's like 100, not a novella. Is novella the right one? It's like a 100-page book. But it was written by this guy who had interviewed at length this general who had been stationed in the Tibetan, basically where the Fountain of Youth was, where those rooms were. And he went back after he had been discharged from the American military to the temple, was there for at least like 10 years or something like that. And he came back with all this knowledge. He was very old, but he was in incredible shape. And he taught all these different things about the system. And the Tibetans will spin. They will spin. I still do this to this day. The Tibetan Five Rites. The first rite is spinning. You spin up to 21 times, and then they do these simple yoga moves where they're pulling prana into their body, and they're just kind of stretching and extending their spine in some simple ways. And what they believed was that the chakra system was spinning, and that old age was caused by the different chakras, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, becoming out of sync with one another. And when these chakras became out of sync, now your collagen isn't like firing as often because it's off the timetable with like, your hair growth and like whatever. Like, all of these things are regulated together. They're all spinning together in harmony. And then at a certain point, some of the cogs in your clock system aren't, moving at the right speed. And now you're not telling the right time anymore. And the result is, gray hair and wrinkly skin and a whole bunch of things that look like old age. But really, it's your energy system breaking down, no longer working correctly. So animals going to eat colored food to help, try to bring their system into alignment is a very sensical thing, and a sweet little was I going to say inspiration? It's a sweet little intuition on behalf of the animals that will bring them into health. So when you're dealing with crystals, If you're having trouble with your root chakra, which would be representative of like your legs, stability in your life, feeling like you've got a good foundation, a good head on your shoulders kind of thing, that's red and black. The darker crystals go for the lower chakras, and the lighter crystals go for the highest chakras. So white being top of your head, black being bottom, but also brown, reds. Those tend to be root chakra things. There are exceptions to some of these rules. There'll be some stone that you'll be like, hey, Jesse, there's this round stone that I use all the time, and it's for my throat, apparently. And, there are some exceptions to these things, and maybe they have components, or maybe they vibrate in that color on a different level, or who knows. But for the most part, you're talking about reds and blacks and browns. That's going to be for healing your foot, your ankle, your knee, your hip, your root, foundational structure of your body. At number 2, you get into orange, and something like a cornelian is a really good for your sexual thing. I was raped, or I was I had a vasectomy and I screwed myself up. I'm sad. I'm not producing enough sperm, and me and my wife haven't been able to have babies. Things like that. And Jesse, how is it that the structure of an orange stone? I don't know. I don't know exactly, other than I know that everything is one. Everything is this mind matrix. Everything is being built similarly on an energetic level. So energetically, there's something to those stones and their configuration that's producing an orange color to your orange center. Your sacral center in your body that responds to that color, responds to that sort of vibration, and they help to bring each other into alignment. It just works, like certain math tricks, certain magic tricks, you lay out a bunch of cards in a certain order and you count them, and, you can do, like with a deck of cards, there's a lot of tricks that you can do just with counting, because there's 13 cards in each suit. I was watching, what's that guy? He's got a great YouTube channel the other day, but he was just doing this trick where, you basically, pull out a card, the first card's 8, and then you count to 13, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, certain amount of cards. And every time you do that with cards, eventually, if you break down the whole deck, it'll break up into this mathematically significant thing where you can get repeatable results over and over and over again. And these are repeatable results, but there's a little bit of subtlety to some of this stuff going on. So, it can seem like it's less consistent than it really is. But yes, consistently, some orange stones will help you in that sacred bit. I had there was a loved one that I knew that they had dealt with some stuff, and I got them a cornelian, for Christmas, because I knew that was going to be helpful for them. Did it help? On what level did it help? I don't know. I have been helped by crystals myself. I have had moments of clarity, and had been able to. They call it the Apache's tear, which I think is like a black obsidian, or is it a different? I think it's an obsidian, but it's always like dusty, like a raw one or whatever. And they'll like bring up all sorts of raw emotions and stuff. And I had this fucking Apache tear in my pocket for like 5 hours, and later that night I forgot it was there, and I'm like crying about something because this stone brought it out in me. Now, your third chakra is your solar plexus. It's like your center of strength. Fear, yellow, right, is the thing. And what if you're yellow? You yellow bastard, which is kind of a weird inversion, because yellow is the sun and brightness and bravery and power, right? But it's also can be this, I'm fearful, I'm scared. Okay, so you're having things, you're nervous about something, a really powerful yellow stone, really powerful, they're all powerful, the yellow stone, but there's different ones and whatnot, and some of them, some are better than others, some are more interesting than others. There's really a lot of information, too, that you can get on these things. Again, like, I am fascinated by stones, I like them, but it's not necessarily one of these subjects that, like, I'm an expert in. I just enjoy them. So there's plenty of little things that I'll be able to tell you and guidance I'll be able to give you. But if this stuff sounds fun to you, and we'll talk about crystal skulls in a second, let that be your guide. Go. I used to have a big encyclopedia book. I left it at the spiritual shop that I worked at. And there was so much information. I was kind of constantly like sort of surprised by like how much science had gone into various stones and things that had been discovered, and like stories and histories behind a lot of these stones. So there's a lot to learn if you want to. Getting into your fourth chakra, we were talking about green. Green is the balancing color. It's the one in the middle. It's Roy, G, Biv. There's a G right in the middle. There's 3 on each end. That center, that balancing color of green, jade, things for your heart, following your heart, being true to your heart, love. There's a lot of different associations that will come from a green stone and green things. Getting into your throat, it's blue. Blue is for communication. Often problems with your teeth, problems with your throat. It's that you're not communicating your truth. Your throat is right above your heart. So here's your personal truth. What does your heart say? Did you say it out of your throat? Don't block your throat chakra. If you're having trouble communicating, you're having trouble on the test, or you're having trouble in public speaking, somebody would get themselves some beautiful blue stone, have it in their pocket, wear it as a necklace, and find that it was a little easier for them to go out there on that stage and communicate, even though there was somebody who were kind of generally nervous, right? Going up a little bit more, you get into your third eye, your sixth chakra, which now we get into blue, indigo, so purple, and essentially the top is pink. So the purple stones for your third eye, this is to increase your intuition. Essentially, your third eye and your sixth chakra, your seventh chakra. There's a lot of bits. Your sixth chakra can actually see things. You can physically. It is an eye. It has all the mechanics of an eye inside of your mind. And when that system is clear, for visions and seeing the future, just connecting your intuition in about where you want to be or how things should line up with your inner knowing and inner sight. There's again, when you get into so many of these esoteric things, like from one chakra to another, there's always a connection. It's like, I'm going to say something, but it's like that kind of applies to the next one too. Speaking from your heart is right above your mouth. When you're not speaking from your heart, when you're not being true to your heart, that'll cause some problems as well. But it's not always, for your heart, it doesn't have to be related to communication, but it can be a communication version of that. And there's, your inner vision of your sixth sense, your third eye, but then also your crown chakra, where information is flooding in from on high. That's another metaphor for the same thing. So it could be a little tricky there. And that's pink, amethysts or whatever it is you might want to get. Purples and pinks, they'll come in a lot of different colors. But yes, you go down to a crystal shop, whatever it is you might be dealing with, figure out what section of your body it's in, leave with that color crystal. And it will help you on some level. The perfect, divine, sacred geometric structures contained within these crystals will help to remind your body the way it was built, the foundational ruler, measuring stick that was used to form all of your atoms, and every single piece of you was formed using all the same math that is locked into form in the crystals. So I think that basically covers that. So getting into auras a little bit. Auras is something like, I never believed in fucking auras. And then I went to Sedona, Arizona in the United States. And I had a good friend of mine who was a music producer. He had this was when we had become good friends. We're good friends now. But he invited me to come out and work on some music with him. And that place in Sedona is a magical place. And I've had a lot of interesting experiences now in Sedona with other friends and at other times. But at the time, it was my first time going there. And I mean, from ghosts in his guest room, my friend Michael Latanzi, he's a paraplegic, and he would sometimes sleep when he was up late in his studio. There was a room next to the studio, and he would just sleep there. And it was haunted. And he would see this Native American chief and would come talking to him all the time, creeping him the hell out. At the time, I was a total atheist. I didn't believe in any of that stuff. I was like, yeah. Try not to be a dick to him, but I was so not open to any of this shit at all. It was really kind of crazy. And they had a friend of theirs who, I'm trying to remember who was related to who, but essentially one of the people in their group of friends, she owned a spiritual shop down in the main street with her daughter, Jamie. Jamie's actually a very famous aura reader. I forget her last name. But Jamie's if you're at some big corporate event somewhere and they've got an aura reader going around the point, like she's somebody who goes all around the world, really reading people. She can see people's auras. Just, she looks at you. She doesn't see, she just sees your face too, but she will see all of the colors within your aura. Your aura is like in relative fluctuation. Often, there'll be sort of moments, and depending on the moment, one of my best friends, Sarita, she would come down to my concerts, and she could see auras. And when I would get off the stage, she would tell me about what my aura did during different songs. She would be like, oh, when you were singing that song to your daughter, your whole aura changed to, I don't remember some of the details. But I would love when she would come down, because it would be really interesting. Every single time, any detail that she gave me was always like a fucking meaningful bit. And actually, crazier than that, right? When it comes to the aura readers and what the aura readers can see, they can see guardian angels. They can see white lights, with interpretations of these things. And I'll give you a little bit of interpretations based on what I had written down in my notes, like I said, when I did the universal laws class a while ago, in a second. But I'll tell you a brief story. Everybody has two guardian angels that they're assigned. One is a guardian, like guardian protector, and then the other one is a muse. The guardian's usually like a grandparent. I've talked about this before. And the muse is usually more of like a friend. Oftentimes, the grandparent, because the grandparent's already passed on, and your whole life, mom's been going, grandma's still with us. But oftentimes you don't know the muse because you don't have a friend who died young, and the muse is generally a friendship type energy that is encouraging you to be you, encourages you to be your unique self because they like you. That's why it's a friend energy. I like them. Oh, Jesse, you be Jesse, So that's that kind of energy. And then it'd say, don't worry, I got your back. As to God, I'm watching over you. I'm guarding you. And that's a grandparent, usually grandfathers, but also grandmothers, people who you felt protected by. Now, when I had gotten an aura reading from Jamie years later, because Jamie blew my mind when she read my aura. She was just like, she told me what it looked like. She took a picture of it using a Kirlian camera, which is a certain type of photography that will demonstrate your aura. And my aura looked exactly in the picture like she described. And then she handed me a book that she obviously hadn't written in the past few minutes, that she had written all about auras and what they meant. It was her book, and here's the book, and here's auras, and this is what your picture is, and whatever. And it was on the money. And I was an atheist at the time. I didn't believe in any of this shit. And I remember I was having such a hard time explaining what had happened, because the atheist in me was like, this doesn't make any sense. This is all bullshit. So I called her years later as I started to open up and realize that these things mattered. And she was the one that basically kind of got me on the path of that I had these guardian angels, because I had these white lights on my left and my right, and I had a bunch over the top of my head. Well, eventually, my guardian angels, I figured out that was Chris Stalline, who was my best friend, who died when I was like 20. He was my drummer in my band, and I had a lot of survivor's guilt for Chris's death. And then the other one was my grandmother. At a certain point, I was told that they were leaving, that Chris's soul had basically chosen to go into my daughter Parker's body, and that my grandmother, Jeanette, was fully moving into my sister Cheyenne's body, and that this was other incarnations, future incarnations for them of who they were, and that I was being given new guardians. So the guardians I was given was a little shocking to me. One of them less so than the other because I had a connection to him. But it was Lemmy Kilmister from Motorhead was my new guardian on, my like grandfather guardian, somebody protecting me. And then my muse was Prince, the artist formerly known as Prince. And I didn't have a lot of connection with Prince. It's funny, though, one of my good friends who I make music with, my bass player, Andre Padre Holmes, bass player for Dilf USA, he played with Prince, and he knew Prince. And essentially, every single time I've ever communicated with Prince, he just tells me, call Andre. Call Andre. And for many years, me and Andre were sort of like playing phone tag and doing whatever. But now me and Andre are in a band together, and we are doing things together, slow going as it may go. But part of the Prince being made one of my people was that he was here to make sure that I did not forget about my relationship with Andre and that he and I can make great music together. So a lot of guidance there or whatnot. Granted, I got like nothing to like prove this shit other than the fact that there's this peripheral connection of energy and whatnot, and I'm experiencing this thing. However, I got some fucking proof of Lemmy Kilmister one night through my friend who could read auras. And this is some crazy shit. And maybe I told this story on the show, but I don't think so. Maybe I've told it at some point. Sarita, my aura reader friend, she comes down to the concert, sees the concert, oh wait, I should go back a step. Okay. This concert that she came to, I brought two of my best friends. My best friend, Aaron Sparrow, and Stefan Gregory. Now, both of these guys can confirm that this happened. Before we left, I did a little meditation, and I connected myself to my guides and Gaia and whatnot. But specifically, I said out loud to Aaron and Stefan, or in front of them, I should say, that I'm connecting to Lemmy Kilmister. Lemmy, come help me kick ass at this concert. I'm going down to the concert, I will be possessed by the spirit of Lemmy Kilmister. Let us go, right? And I don't remember exactly what I said, but I said Lemmy Kilmister out loud to the two of them beforehand, and some bit of like a little prayer to Lemmy, feel free to help me kick some ass kind of thing. So I go and I do the show, and I go outside because I think one of my friends is smoking a cigarette or something. And we're standing outside, and Sarita runs up to me. She's like, Jesse, oh my God, you had a possessing entity during the performance, she says to me. A possessing entity. The first, like the way she said it, a possessing entity. I just that doesn't sound good. But I smiled because, I always love talking to her after the shows, and you're telling me what she saw. And I said, oh yeah? Was it Lemmy Kilmister? And she looked at me like somebody walked over her grave. She goes, Jesse, I'm not even kidding. Where's my son? I turned to my son. During the show, I said, Jesse has some sort of possessing entity attached to him. I think it's Lemmy Kilmister. And I go, Aaron, Stefan. I call my friends over. I'm like, Sarita, can you please repeat what you just said? And she tells him, and Stefan and Aaron go, whoa. And I go, tell her, what did I tell you right before we came? Because, it's all in my head. I'm a spiritual person, but I'm intuitive and I trust. And, and I'm following the patterns, and I'm looking, and over time you get better and better at following, figuring things out. And I was figuring things out. And this is the truth. Confirmed through somebody who could see auras. I said, was it Lemmy Kilmister? She said, oh my God, I thought it was Lemmy Kilmister. He said, he was asking Lemmy Kilmister to come help him during the performance. Then his friend who can see things like that on that level actually saw that, called it out. For me, that was crazy. That was a crazy moment. Now, just to talk about some of these things that you can see in aura, because people can have black auras. And if it's black auras, that means, they got to clear, there's a clearing that's needed. Energy needs to be cleared. Could be fear, could be unresolved grief. Somebody died in their family. Could be potential health problems. But also here, this is color aura associations. Can be protection, can be negative, can be banishing, can be reversal. When it comes to white, if your aura is white, they're seeing white lights. Could be new soul or old soul, right? They're seeing white lights in my aura. Jamie was the first one who said, you've got two major guides. They're coming through very strong. They're very strong white light on your left and on your right. And she's told me that I had 13 little white lights above my head, which I didn't believe really until I was playing with my daughter, who was less than 2 months old. And she was looking above my head and laughing. A less than 2-month-old baby, they're not developmentally, they're not there yet. She was looking above my head, clear as day. I called in my ex-wife can confirm that Patty, come here, what's going on? She's looking above my head, Jamie just told me I have all these lights above my head. She's looking above my head. She's laughing and smiling. Crazy stuff. So white can be new soul or old soul, who has cleared all karma, complete balance and harmony, purest that exists, psychic and intuitive. So when the white comes through and it's lights from the other side, it's much pure. It's the purest that exists. Gray auras can be blocked energy, breach in the field. It's funny, for nothing, there's nothing in this thing here. Or no, that's for yellow. Yellow for the solar plexus chakra, right? Generally. But good sense of humor can be yellow. Observant, independent, intelligent, hard work can represent yellow. Blue, peaceful and calm, self-reflective, speak carefully, naturally, spiritual and wise, innovative. Green, if they see green, it might be telling of a loving nature. More things that I'm having a hard time reading. Unconditionally kind, wish to leave the world better, suffer, envy, inferiority, and jealousy. Yes, so there are also negative. There's polarities like to all these colors. So some of these it'll be like, okay, well that's good, and then you'll be like, oh, but that's bad. How is that related to that thing? So all of the chakras have, and I'm not going to bother to go through the thing because really it's about your personal chakra. Who cares what this one is unless you can see the colors to be able to replicate them, like Jamie or like my friend Sarita. What does it matter to you? But for those people who can see, it's huge. Okay, so it's real, and you'll see a lot of correlation between the stone colors and the aura colors and what they mean and it's all related, and it's just over and over and over again. You're going to see all this stuff repeated. So the rest of this list, I'm going to kind of just like blow through, because I think the foundations of so much of the things that we talked about here are inherent. And just will be repeated over and over and over again. But I'm going to try to just sort of encapsulate the whys of these things working. Okay. So if you get into tarot or angel cards, we're talking about getting out of the way. If you overthink what you're doing with tarot and angel cards, you will affect the thing. Psychically speaking, when we're talking about intuition and channeling, which is another one that is on the list, and I'll kind of cross it off as we talk about all of these things here. So I just got my list of my things. The only thing that you can't channel, the only answer that you can't know, is the answer to the question that you've already fucked up. If you're making the bad choice and you keep making that bad choice and you refuse to get off of it, all the questions associated with that bad choice, you're blocked. You're not going to get the right answer. So let's say you're a psychic, but on some fundamental level, you're blocked about a lot of things, or you're hung up on a lot of things. You're hung up on the Bible and details about the Bible and dogma about the Bible. Anything that allows you to get hung up and not know that you're a unique individual and that one size doesn't fit all, and that, who knows what bizarre answers you might get. You really got to be open to things. The moment you start to control the reading by being unwilling to be open to certain possibilities, it's diminishing returns. And it's the same way for tarot and angel cards. So, invariably, pretty much anybody who does a tarot card reading for you or an angel card reading, they're going to have a certain amount of blockages. Hopefully, depending on the person, those blockages aren't blockages that will be projected out onto you. I love tarot, and generally speaking, I like to do it in the angel cards because I think that people tend to read into tarot in negative ways, and I don't like when people bring in their negativity when they see certain cards or whatever. But you are numbers and angles, and you're an energetic pattern. And these cards are being laid out in the energetic patterns that are reflected for you. When you're out of the way of that, and that was what I was going to say. When you have somebody who's like, I don't know, judging people or putting dogma on them, like say you're somebody who's like, man, this person needs Christ, or this person's fat, so they're obviously unhealthy, or like somebody who's making assumptions about you and not just clearing their brain, is going to block the reading. But if you are somebody, maybe somebody like me, I mean, I've never done a bad reading in my life, but it's not a compliment to me because it's not me. I literally I know it's not me. I don't think it's me. I just start turning cards and I go, all right, these are the cards that came out innocently. This is what I think they kind of say. Does this speak to you? And invariably people go, holy shit. You know, I've had a couple times where people went, nah. But then by the time I was done, like kind of just going through thing after thing after thing in the cards, they went, oh, well, I guess that is actually really accurate. And again, it's not me. I'm not reading anything. I'm not guessing anything. When I do my tarot reads, I pull the cards. I say, don't tell me anything. And then I'll look at the cards and I'll go, all right, based on these cards, these cards suggest to me something like this is playing out in your life. Is that true? You know, and then feel free to now inform me if anything that I just said makes any sense to you. And then 90% of the time it would be, or really more than that, 95% of the time, it'd be like, oh yeah, blah, 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 blah. And then from there, I start what would get more clarity from their words. My intuition would be pinged, and I would be able to go on okay, I think this is trying to say this. But when you're dealing with psychics, channels, tarot people, anything, you are dealing with their mess that's inside their head and their heart. So if there is blockages that are coming up for them from the way that they're going to do this, it is going to block your reading. That's why there's so many psychics in this world that are terrible. And a lot of psychics are blocked, don't really understand the ways in which they're blocked. On some levels, they know they're psychic. They've seen that they can do this and they can remember that. And there's a reason why they were drawn to do this, but they feel like they're inconsistent at some points and whatever else. And this, is why sometimes you get people who are just kind of faking it to some degree. And, not to all degree, on a lot of degrees, they think, no, I really think I'm psychic and whatnot. But they're sort of making up for some of their lack with charm and guesses, and they can get a little carried away. But there are some fucking amazing psychics out there. Granted, they tend not to just be the guy at the corner. I mean, there are people with waiting lists out there. You get people who will channel the Akashic records for you, and holy shit. I mean, I've heard members of my mom is somebody like every Christmas, she'll freaking buy every member of the family some crazy super psychic, and then I'm the one who I'll listen to everybody's reading. I'll listen to my two brothers reading, my sister's reading, my mom's reading. I want to hear everybody's reading, and I've been blown away by some of these people. And for the most part, my mom's, her track record is very good. She'll always bring people who are, wow, I can't believe that person knew all that shit and said all that shit. So they're out there, and it's cool. So Reiki. Reiki is one that, again, you can do your own research on this stuff. Get into Reiki. I want to do some Reiki classes. My mom's done some Reiki. She's Reiki certified or whatever. And granted, for people who don't believe in Reiki, oh, you're certified in woo-woo magic. But there is something. There is mental intention. When you're looking down, you're doing your homework in class, and you feel like somebody's looking at you, and you look up, and sure enough, they were looking at you. You caught somebody looking at you. What is that? That's that you're feeling their intention, right? And if you can feel it like that, like there's a pointer on you, right? What if we put that pointer and we started pressing? What if we started thinking positive thoughts or thinking negative thoughts? What is a voodoo doll, right? I make a voodoo doll. I'm thinking about you. I'm going and stab, stab, stab. Man, there's some nutty freaking stories that people could tell you about voodoo magic and whatnot. But it's all tied to the same thing. It's intention and action. One of my really good friends, Olivia, she's amazing at Reiki. I don't even know if she's trained traditionally so many of the other people that I've worked with are trained. She will work on you and she will find energy blockage, and you will feel her consistent pressure, and she just keeps pressing and pressing and pressing until it's gone. And she's pressing with her mind. She's sitting there with her energy and pressing through. I have had Reiki sessions. I have gotten up feeling so good, the equivalent of being caressed, but being caressed through energy, the mind, the subtle body. The Reiki is one of the harder ones for me to explain the science behind the thing. But I mean, my brother Cody, he was very fond of, he'd make a little cave with his hands, and inside he'd be doing an energy ball in his hand, and at a certain point he could see it. The energy ball would get stronger and stronger. Getting open to subtle energy, to being able to sense subtle energy. I mean, just think about terms of you can sense static electricity, you can sense energy, oh man, I didn't like the energy of that room. it's hard to like from. Well, I'm sure actually somebody could do a better job explaining this a little bit more scientifically, like I was trying to explain crystals and things like that, but. The advocacy of Reiki is legit, and there are people out there who are wonderful. But again, a little bit of the same thing of like, if there's a block in you for the tarot cards, if there's a block in you for the Reiki, you get a wounded master. And most of the fucking healers out on this planet, most of the psychics on this planet, they are not. I don't think any of them are fully developed. I know that in some deep esoteric ways, I personally am one of the most advanced sort of like energetic adepts on planet Earth, and I'm still not my energy is still not perfect. Granted, the ability to go and like heal somebody and help somebody is sort of like compartmentalized. Just like if you're in a real state of loving and non-judgment and different things, like, and no jealousy, or like you don't have any negativity that comes up from other people being happy, being healed, being whole. If you're not imbalanced in that area, there are some spiritual Reiki masters and other people who can come in and do great things for you. They may need a Reiki master themselves to come and help them out, but their darkness and their difficulty won't get in the way of you and what you're experiencing. I like to think that, when I'm doing those sorts of things, and I think it's been like this for a while, I don't get in the way of other people. I love other people. I want to see everybody prosper. I don't have a lot of jealousy in me, or I don't really overthink when it comes to others. It's me overthinking about myself. So even though I'm still processing certain aspects of my awakening and blah blah blah, the dark energy that's in me isn't necessarily going to be directly going to any other person, because it's more centralized with me, and not about being a member of the community. Like I'm already a good member of the community, and spiritually that continues to extend to others. So don't be totally afraid. Because we're all not exactly healed. We're working on it. We're learning crazy things, and some of us are expanding faster than others, and some of us are a little slower on the thing, but we're all growing and learning and trying to even out our energy bodies. So, but there are good people on planet Earth who can help you with Reiki, who can help you with tarot, and you're not going to leave with a demon. You're not going to have any bad vibes. But it is something to consider. If you got somebody who's offering to do a psychic reading, offering tarot, or whatever it is for you, and you don't really feel like that person has their shit together, if you feel like that person's a little dark, if you feel like that person's reading about fucking Edgar Casey and summoning demons and, being a crazy person, okay, these are good signs that maybe they're not the best, and they could theoretically bring some of their dogma, some of their thinking, some of their darkness, and put it onto you. So keep that shit in mind. But really, like, oh my God, I would trust Olivia any day of the week to Reiki me, and that doesn't mean that she's perfect. I'm sure she's getting Reiki appointments for people that are good to help her. But I can tell that Olivia's, her intent and everything, like, she's right. She's not somebody that's going to feed back negative energy onto me. All right, so now we're just going to get into, we got a bunch of them now. We're going to go like kind of rapid fire. Pendulums, as I said earlier, and I really don't need to say that much more, but, you sit there and you ask the pendulum a question, and the pendulum will spin. It will vortex when you have the right answer. And when you don't have an answer, when you have an answer that doesn't give you any energy, it'll just hang there, or it'll literally like stop spinning. It's amazing. I've used pendulums a bunch of times, and it operates on subtle energy, the subtle energy of your body going in. You're asking for the answer. There's another one that you can do where it's like a leaning test. You kind of set yourself up to lean forward or back, like you're like swaying. And, or there's a couple different ways to go about it. And like you're sort of like in this really loose state, you ask yourself the question, and the question, if the answer is yes, you'll lean forward. And if you ask yourself, if the question is no, you'll fall backwards. So you'll lose cohesion versus gain cohesion. There's some similar principles that are going on when people are doing muscle testing. If you've ever had that thing where they'll do allergy tests, they introduce certain things into your field, and you'll feel to lose cohesion. You won't be able to hold your arm up or whatever else. Muscle testing is really interesting. Another subject that's worth reading about and understanding better. So just like tarot, you've got runes. runes are, they're little fragments of words, pieces of words and meaning, and they'll lay down. It's like, I'm reading the bones, but there's math and there's stuff there. Even looking at a picture, if I was a psychic and I had a bunch of bones and I threw all these things down, and then they arrange themselves in whatever way they do, but through my intuition, it can be triggered by patterning. So I throw the things down, and there's a certain mathematical equation that I'm looking at, even though you can't see it like math. It's a chicken bone, it's a feather, it's a whole bunch of things there, but I can read it intuitively, energetically, and I can pull forth answers the same way that I can pull forth answers from putting down those tarot cards. It's easier for me because the tarot cards are labeled and all this stuff, and I'm just like, what does the chicken bone mean? What does the feather mean? It's a slightly more complex thing, and you're dealing with a Native American shaman who's operating this way. He's been doing it for a very long time. He's been able to hone and figure out and feel out what the energy of all these things means. Psychicism we can skip because we already talked about that with the channeling and stuff. Past life regression. If you want to look up a lady, her name is Dolores Cannon. Dolores Cannon will help you to, if you were a former skeptic like me and didn't believe in hypnotism, oh my God, Dolores Cannon, she will put you to rest. She is a no-nonsense woman. She went into this thing with a very practical, feet on the ground kind of thing, and she opened up doors to the subconscious that exist, and she was able to bring forth so much information. She's got 5 books on the convoluted universe, books on Jesus, so much stuff, and all of it is just mind-blowing. Go dig into Dolores Cannon. And a lot of the stuff that she was essentially doing and what she teaches, or rather she's dead now, but her schools still exist, and they teach past life regression. And honestly, I've done some past life regression in YouTube videos because my brother Shane had a lot of luck with it. I didn't have as much luck as he did, but I had luck. And I had some past lives that I experienced through just sitting and meditating with somebody, basically doing what they would do in a session if I was with them. And plenty of people have, gone back to other lives. Generally speaking, why are you going to other lives? Well, you're going to other lives because there's some connection to this life, and it'll help you understand. My brother Shane has had lots of different things that connect, whether it's his girlfriend and him and the relationships they had in the past, and but things that have really allowed him to understand himself better and grow as a person through these past life regressions, not fake woo-woo bullshit. Additionally, sound healing. Vibrations, tuning forks. We were talking about my album. Go to Kickstarter right now. Sign up for notifications. Type in Jesse Blaze Snider, and it'll say a box set, but really it's for my Solfeggio Transmissions album. These frequencies will heal you. And granted, again, you're like, oh, a replicator. What kind of level? Well, each one is a different frequency playing on a different chakra system, a different sort of math that is, good for your body and balancing for your body. But sound healing is no joke. I had my friend Christine, who used to work at that spiritual shop that I used to work at. She was a sound healer. She had all the tuning forks. She had done a free kind of workup on me once. Oh my God, I felt amazing. I forgot there was a problem that I was dealing with at the time that went away. But really credible. And just when you think about it, every single thing in your reality is what? Vibrating. Like we said at the very beginning. You're vibrating, the earth's vibrating, the rocks are vibrating, the phone's vibrating, everything's fucking vibrating. So, and the crystals, right? They're vibrating with a certain vibratorial energy. So are her things. Essentially, it's like a slightly more aggressive version of putting some crystals around you. But she's sitting there with some vibrating, and she's fucking hitting those tuning forks and getting the vibration to such a point where, just like a cat's purr is healing you and helping you, this tuning fork vibration is healing you and helping you. Awesome stuff. All right, just a few more here. We got breath work. If you talk about prana, which is like the sun is creating, the prana is coming out of the sun and we're breathing in, we always tend to talk about oxygen, but prana is really the big part of the thing when you get into meditation and you're talking about breathing exercises, dragon breath, and other types of things. You're super pumping your system with as much prana, as much spiritual energy as possible. I'm pulling in all of this energy, and this energy is helping to heal me, helping to balance me. Breath work is insane. Breath work, there's so many things. Like meditation is usually what people talk about, getting into higher states of consciousness. Use breath work. If you struggle with meditation, don't do meditation. go look up different breath works like dragon breath and other things like that, and go try some of those things. Focus on your breathing, and but breathe specifically. Generally speaking, in meditation, they sit there, okay, I'm meditating and I'm observing my breath. No. Breathe in these very specific ways. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds. Breathe out for 4 seconds, hold it for 4 seconds. Breathe in for 4 seconds, hold it. These are different breathing patterns which will produce results within your body from minor ecstasy and healing. Granted, I haven't experienced like a complete healing sort of thing. But I have, using breath work, I've experienced major, like, total loosening of of all tension in my body, a momentary pieces of, and more longish momentary pieces of total bliss from breathing and getting myself supercharged with prana and giving myself the medicine that it needs. When you're not breathing and you're not getting in enough oxygen and that prana, you start to, I don't know, I can't think straight. Let me just sit down and breathe, right? When you're breathing more, when you're getting more consistent oxygen in there, fuck yeah, man. Change your whole world. Now, remote viewing is an interesting one. Well, I'll say placebo and nocebo for the last. Remote viewing is interesting because of how many fucking files you can find from the freaking CIA and government documents on them using remote viewers to find things, to find people, to look at planets, to look at... there are so many interesting stories about remote viewing. I've never done any remote viewing myself. There are books on remote viewing and lots of different bits of training of how to remote view and all this stuff. I haven't gotten deep into it because I don't. There's a part of me that's just like, how can I trust that? And there's no way for me to verify, and so I'm not even going to bother. But oh man, some amazing stories that you'll hear from people who have become expert remote viewers and reviewing planets. Remote viewing planets and alien species and things all over the earth through these things. And the CIA and various governmental agencies have been collecting remote viewers and getting these people and using them to get accurate results for ages. You talk about crimes committed with the help of a psychic. Not crimes committed with the help of a psychic. Crimes solved with the help of a psychic. Similar kind of thing. They're looking for people or they're looking for places and they need to know what's there or what's under there or whatever it is. And oh man, go dig into that subject. There's books on that and all sorts of stuff. There's people who love to do the remote viewing thing. It's interesting. And then I don't really have that much more to add to the affirmations and sigils thing. But what did I say at the very beginning? Your brain can't distinguish from imagination and reality. So you sit there going, I'm okay. I'm a good guy. Oh my God. I'm just thinking of... Rodney Dangerfield at the beginning of that movie Ladybugs, where he's the soccer coach. He says, I'm good enough. I'm smart enough. But it's true. Thinking that you're good enough and thinking that you're smart enough is a great thing. If you sit there thinking I'm good enough and I'm smart enough, but you don't really believe it, the more belief, the more convincing you can do of this thing, which is half the reason why they tell you to repeat these things. Because if I could tell you to repeat these things, I don't have to force you to believe it. As much as I know that if you repeat it 3 times, it's harder to deny it. Your body will eventually feel it. So affirmations, sigils is a similar thing. I make up a sigil. I know what it means. This represents this. That represents that. That represents that. Every time I look at it, I'm reminded. I used to have a magic, magic. I had a, what is it called? The word's escaping me. A shrine I had a statue of Jesse Custer from the comic book Preacher. Jesse Custer, I'm Jesse. So he was representative of me as a spiritual person. And then I had him on a circle. I had him on this drum top that I had my drummer who passed away. I had him on the drum top for Chris's drum that he had signed, that I had saved. And then I put within that all of these things that were representative of me, at the time, my wife, my children, jobs that I was working on, friends that I had, people that I wanted to protect. Working with this shrine, I put in a pin of David Brockie, who had just passed away. He was the singer from Gwar. He was in a TV show called Holliston that was produced by my friend Adam Green. He's friends with my whole family. My dad was on that show as well. And Adam was very good friends with David, and I had gotten a lot of promotional material from this stuff for free, because we were friends. And I happened to, this pin fell behind my dresser. I put it into my shrine, and I ended up having psychic communication with David Brockie because I made a connection with him by putting a pin of his in my shrine. And then literally within a couple hours, David was like, yes, I want to talk to you. Can you, like, you talk to me, let's communicate. And essentially he wanted me to talk to Adam. A story for another day. And maybe I shared this story in the past of me the first time I got possessed by a dead person. I let him possess me because I was interested in what was going on, and something was going on. I was totally interacting with something. I was like, this is interesting. So I didn't try to stop it, but it's really true. So, affirmations and sigils, but also physical monuments, a physical representation of me and my reality and all these things, that shrine. You make a shrine to the Buddha. You make a shrine to Jesus. There is real power in that stuff. Real power. All right. The final thing, and, I'm just saving it for last because it's one of my favorite subjects, the placebo and the nocebo. And I've been wanting to do a TV show for years called The Placebo Effect, because what the placebo effect proves is just profound and astounding. They have to work it into every scientific study that they have. There's always a placebo, a control group that will be given a placebo. And the placebo is upwards of 50% effective every fucking time. And granted, there can be variability on this thing, but essentially fucking 50-50. You need your medicine to be better than 50-50 because the placebo is 50-50. So, like, in order to get good results, and granted, there's plenty of fucking cheating going on within the medicine world of them, like, getting the results that they want or claiming to have results that they want. But they are theoretically always testing this stuff against the placebo. And what the placebo proves is that a person who knows that they're on placebo medicine, but simply is thinking every day that I'm taking this medicine for this thing. Yeah, it might be a placebo, but I'm taking this for this thing. You get up every day and take a placebo medicine for your cancer, and you know it's a placebo. And this is the thing. They still get results. The results only diminish like a little. So you don't tell somebody that it's a placebo, and it works. You tell somebody it's a placebo, and it fucking works still. And that's why the nocebo effect is such a scary thing. Because when people start to put ideas in your head about that's a bad neighborhood, you go over there and you'll get mugged. Or, ooh, I hate this sort of food. Now I hate all the food, because the nocebo effect is true too. When you say that the side effects of this medicine is you might get hay fever, you might get a hay fever simply from the nocebo. You were told that this would be the effect, and now you're like, oh, I've had the effect. Was the effect the effect, or did you bring the effect on? Because all of these, like, they'll test 1,000 people, right, for side effects, and then they'll give you all the side effects. Why is there 100 different possible side effects? Well, because 100 different people had 100 different fucking possible side effects. There was a certain amount of overlap amongst them, and then they were, okay, I guess it's these ones or whatever. And now they've got like a whole list, and now these side effects are generally the side effects that are going to be experienced by the people who are taking the medicine, because these are the ones that have been put into everybody's brain. And the nocebo effect, it's also upwards of fucking 50% effective. So placebo, nocebo, 50 fucking percent effective. Every little thing that is being said to you is affecting the way you're looking at the world, the way you're experiencing it, and the way you feel about it. I stopped a long time ago sharing negative health concerns, like, something like soda, is supposed to not be good for you. At the same time, I recognize that, well, for some people, soda's perfectly fine. And essentially, I'm going to put it in people's brains that soda's bad for them. And now every single time they have soda, they've got it in their brain that soda's not good for them. And I put it there. I said that. And the soda might nocebo them. It might affect them badly. Because Jesse came along and Jesse said, I was trying to protect them. I didn't want them to get sick from the soda. And I said, soda makes you sick. And now they had some soda and now they're sick. Fuck, man. I was trying to help. Wow. The mind. The mind is so powerful. I was talking to my girl's mom the other day. And we were talking about different financial things. And she was like, talking about, just kind of being responsible and like, invest in this, invest in that, whatever. But the language she was using while she was talking about this was toxic for her mind, for my mind, for everybody's mind who was listening. Because she would say something like, well, you never know what might happen. You know, at a certain age, like, at a certain age, what? I should be scared? You never know what might happen. I should be scared? I'd seen it said in a meme on the internet, and it's really great. The moment you shift from worrying about what could happen to being excited for what could happen, you'll change your entire life. Because as long as you're worrying about what could happen, you're experiencing the nocebo. But once you start getting excited about what could happen, now you're experiencing the placebo. And the placebo is fucking upwards of 50% effective every fucking time. And you give yourself that placebo medicine long enough and in enough areas, a little placebo medicine here, a little placebo medicine there, a little placebo medicine there, motherfuckers, you are off to the races. You're going to completely flip around your entire idea. I've been watching it with my kids. My two youngest are super psychic, very intuitive, very energetic and bright. And we were going bowling with them. And Parker and Grayson, both of them, they do so good when they feel encouraged. When they feel encouraged, the encouragement builds and builds and builds. And when they feel discouraged, the discouragement builds and builds. And on a good head of encouragement, my son, who's, 10 years old? He's about to be 11. He bowled 130 game. He'd never done that before. And it just kept going. And he's inconsistent in his bowling, but he's getting better and better. And the more he felt good, the more placebo of I can do this and I'm good. I'm good at bowling. Meanwhile, in a similar moment, my daughter Parker kept turning to me going like, I suck at this. I'm no good. There was one game where Grayson said, I lost it. I lost my rhythm. There was a game I was watching because my girl and her dad, they were on the same bowling team. That's why we were in, what was it called? Laughlin. We were at this weekend because it was a tournament. And there was a moment where my girl's pins got all messed up and her dad, he was bowling a perfect game. He was 5 or 6 rounds in, and he had bowled a perfect game. And at a certain point, he said out loud, like, fuck, this delay trying to fix my daughter's pin situation because the machine got screwed up. This delay is really fucking up my rhythm. And she said the same thing. She was like, yeah, I was in a rhythm. I felt like I was doing good. And this really just fucks up your rhythm. I was getting good in there. And then the moment they said that and they felt that, and then it was are they going to fuck up their rhythm? Well, the next one George was able to get, but then one more after that. Oh, he lost his strike. Did the nocebo play an effect? I think it does. I think it absolutely does. It can't help but to. At a certain point in one of the games, my kid said, "Oh, Daddy, you can get this one," and it was like it was a weird split or whatever, and I just immediately said, "No, I don't think I can." And then I went, "You're right. I can get this one. I do think I can." What am I saying? Thank you. You're right. I can get this one. So all of these things, every single piece of this woo-woo whatever, it is on the table. It is possible. Your attitude towards it will affect it. Because of the placebo and the nocebo. That's another reason why I wanted to save these ones for the end. Because sort of, if you don't believe in the channeling and you think it's stupid, well, it's going to be stupid. If you believe, you're going to get something from it. Even like in a fucking, even if you had a tarot reader who, they put so much of themselves on it. They were projecting themselves and they fucked up your reading. They didn't really give you a good reading. If you're in alignment and you believe that there's always something to get from something or something to learn from something, you'll figure out the fucking words that they said that were accurate and you will get something from it. So, it's really always in your power to placebo yourself into success or to nocebo yourself into your own defeat. But do not be closed-minded to these possibilities, both in the way of to your detriment of like, I didn't believe in that and it affected me anyway. Or I did believe in that and, and I got a positive effect from it because I was able to be open-minded to these people who think these things and these things. There are doors to other universes and other civilizations, other cultures, other ways of being that are opened by all of these things, from crystals and aura reading and tarot cards and runes and past life regressions and sound healing. All of it is its own thing. There are people who are dedicated to these subjects. I highly recommend any of these things that you felt really, oh man, that's so interesting. Go fucking dig into this stuff yourself. That's your intuition saying, I know something about that. I like something about that. I already have knowledge there. It'll be easy. Right? When you want to learn, when you want to understand better, it is easy. It's fucking easy to freaking figure things out when you have a desire to do so. Anyway, that's all I got for you today on this show. I told you about my Solfeggio Frequency album that is up for you can sign up for notifications on Kickstarter. But also, I got to mention my magazine, Sugar and Bones magazine, will be launched in the next few months. It's a answer to heavy metal magazine. It's fucking awesome, really high-level comic books and photos and poetry and whatever other stuff you can find. Also, high-level articles written by brilliant artists and creative people, and articles designed to point you in the direction of brilliant creative people and brilliant stories and brilliant art and brilliant music and brilliant everything. Anyway, you can sign up for Sugar and Bones magazine, or if you type in Jesse Blaze Snider, you can sign up for the albums, the Solfeggio Transmission album that I'm going to be putting out through Kickstarter in a little bit. Also, my former Monday show, All Your Favorite Bands Suck, still everywhere but Spotify. There's 55 bands that I've recorded episodes of, playing clips of their music, talking about all their albums and how wonderful I think there are. All sorts of genres. You want to get into some new music? Check out that show, All Your Favorite Bands Suck. And then every Wednesday and Saturday, I do my show, Coolest Geek Alive, which is, a little bit like this show on some level, but ultimately it's me as a entertainment enthusiast and as an entertainment writer, as somebody who is a professional writer for many years, worked for comic companies and various other people. I know a lot about this stuff and how it's made and why it's being made the way it's being made and why they should make it differently and why they should do better. So if you want to be one of the most educated people in entertainment, listen to my show every Wednesday. And then every Saturday, I'll just do a coolest classic, pick a movie, pick a TV show that I think is great, and I just go gush about it for like 15 minutes. Anyway, I love you so much. Thank you so much for listening to this show. I went over time a little bit today, but like I said, all of these things were kind of short, so I didn't want to do an episode on like one of them, and I just thought, you know what? I'm just going to do an episode on like all of these things at once. So I hope that this filled your brain with lots of information and that you feel really excited and that there's something that you've taken from this, and you're going to go off and spend fucking hours and hours and hours listening to somebody else talk at length about any one of these things. Because a lot of these I've spent months of my life listening about some of these fucking things. But any one of them might be the right one for you. So, whatever it is, go forth, be merry, have fun, have a great week. I hope it's a great week for you guys. And I think it's going to be a great week for me. Fingers crossed there, but I think so. Anyway, love you guys. Be the placebo, not the nocebo. And join me again next Monday for another fucking mind-blowing episode of everything they don't want you to know. Love you. Peace.
There's something in the water. There's something in the air. The proof is all around us.
The symptoms are everywhere. It's not a matter of time. Sure as the blaze in your eyes, I sense a subtle shift. Instincts I can't resist. Weary of wolves in disguise. Drunk on a gallon of wine. Red as the rivers you cried. Bad apples spoil the punch. Bruises and rotten fronts. You've got a thirst you can't hide.
There's something in the water. There's something in the air. The proof is all around us. The symptoms are everywhere. There's something in the water. There's something in the air. The proof is all around us.
The symptoms are everywhere. Might be a fault of design. A bark as bad as its bite. Fooled by a flash of teeth. Sharp tongues that lie beneath. Words that could eat you